Hello, welcome to the third video and final video on 4-player chess for beginners. This is going to be looking at 3-player theory, 2-player advice, so basically just the end game and where to sort of learn tactics for this board. Because obviously the similar kind of tactics can be found in normal chess, but since the pawns are sort of like moving in different directions, you don't really meet pawns of your opposite player, so pawns don't really like meet head to head too often. Obviously it does happen, and there's not as many tactics involved in pawns. It's mainly like just rooks and stuff like that. But a lot of knight tactics. Obviously multiple players can attack you at the same time, so there's a lot of different tactics. She thought there's a lot of different tactics in normal chess. Well, do I have news for you? The board's bigger, 3 other people get to have a turn, so the tactics can be crazy, especially when people work together, especially when opposites work together against the sides. Um, the best way to learn tactics is to play teams, just because like you have to use them tactics to win games. Uh, Bear in mind though that when you play teams, it's kind of like you can kind of sacrifice yourself to get mate on another person, sacrifice all your pieces, all your pawns, and if you checkmate one of your side players, then you actually win the game. Whereas in free for all, if you sacrifice everything, first of all, your opponent might not even follow you into the tactics, and if your opposite opponent does follow you into the tactics, then um, you still might just be left with nothing, and your opposite opponent might just win instead. Obviously, if you're going to jump in some teams, get to a good level of teams, get to about probably 1800 elo, and start to understand like where the actual tactics lie, because before that you will lose a lot of games very quickly just in the opening. In teams, there is a lead player on each team, a stronger player. Both players follow his game plan. He'll draw arrows on the board. The other person will like repeat them arrows just to show like confirmation. You'll play their moves. For the player you get paired with is at least 200 elo higher. So if you're brand new, 1700 or above, listen, follow their moves. Even if you, to be honest, if your player, if your teammate is just any level higher than you, like you shouldn't just be ignoring their moves, because they're higher for a reason. So if you've playing for the first time and you even get someone who's 1600 and he's drawing arrows, he's probably gonna know how to survive the first 3 or 4 moves. So listen, they're higher for a reason. They know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention, because it's so complicated that your teammate will definitely miss things. It's not really possible until like if you get matched with like a 20, there's like single digits people that are able to actually go through and just make moves and not like completely just blunder the game away every other move, because most people will be most games are kind of like low elo normal chess, so it's uh like a 2300 versus a 2300, or like a 2300 plus game in 4-player teams chess is kind of like a 1000 rated player game in normal chess, where it's like it's solid for the most part. They get out the opening, but there's definitely some blunders. Maybe one person finds it or maybe one person misses, but obviously there's also some really complicated tactics. Don't don't be no BM in teams. Even if your teammate blatantly loses a game, if you're at the level where you're about 1700, you get a brand new player that just costs you the game, ignores you. Don't insult them. Just block them if you really want to. Just move on. Obviously, another thing to do is to watch some higher rated games. 2600 plus for free for all. Because even like my level ish, because I'm currently about 2300. Uh, there's players don't actually play properly. Players don't actually have like the knowledge. You see some 2300s just blindly pushing for queens, ignoring activity. Obviously covered that was a negative thing. Not working with the teammate, the opposite opponent, sorry, not teammate. Not working with the opposite opponent to deliver checkmate on the side players, actually checkmating their opponents, opposite opponents, which is obviously something we covered in last video. It's not necessarily a good thing. You see a lot of them kind of mistakes at 2300, so it's definitely best not to copy them. If you're going to watch someone, just watch games with no explanation, at least 2600. The lower rated your opponents are, the less likely you will be to see the tactics and also have the right mentality about the game. So don't rely on your opposite opponent playing one specific move until you get really high. Once you get like way past my level, you can start to play moves where it kind of relies on you both seeing it. Yeah. There's three main things. Consider who's winning by how much by material. Can you make a queen? Can you dominate? Just don't let yourself get checkmated no matter what, like that. Because now green is going to win the game. Things to consider. I'm just going to leave this table here. It's not really much to, there's not, the boxes don't really mean that much. It's just a general mentality, obviously. If you're winning by a lot of points and material, just end the game. Checkmate someone, get it over with. Are you winning are you winning on material but not points? Just avoid trades. So if you're winning, avoid trades unless you can end the game very quickly. If you're not winning, you and the other person who's not winning should be looking for tactics on the person who is winning, should be looking at trying to bring them down. Obviously, without just making sure if you go into a 2-player, like a 1v1, by checkmating one of the other 2 players, make sure it's a winning checkmate. Especially because bear in mind, you can attack one of the players, and if you attack a player that's worse, and then leave yourself in a position where the other person gets a checkmate on the other person. So basically, if you've got 3 opponents and your person 1, you start attacking person 2, and then person 3 delivers checkmate, and person 3's also got more material than you. Now you just lost the game, so don't do that. Only really attack for checkmate if you've got more material than the other opponent that would also still be in the game. Or you would just make sure you go into a winning endgame for yourself, and if you don't, then maybe think about putting the other person into a main net, but potentially keep the threat alive. Don't ever trade down too much. All of the logic applies conditionally, not just the table is never just always right. You can't just say if this then this. Every position is completely different. Also depend on your opponents. If your opponent's 1500 and you're 2000, go into an endgame. You can probably go into an endgame down a knight or something to potentially might just be worth it, because they might just not know what to do. Whereas when you get to the highest level, when you're up against someone who's really good, you really want to think, am I winning, before going into an endgame. So in a 1v1, just look for forcing moves when there's probably little piece on the board, because you've probably traded down to get into a 1v1. The king's much weaker, because obviously there's so many squares to check from, the line's so much longer, the piece is so much more mobile. But when you're up a queen, you often win, but just because they're so overpowered. So it's usually best to get yourself up a queen. Just so pushing's always good. Be mindful if you're up against someone on your side, push these pawns. If you're up against someone opposite, you can push any pawn that are all passed. So yeah. We're just going to jump into a game example where red is just checkmated there opposite yellow. And we'll look at what that does and how everyone should react and how to navigate this. Right, so blue obviously I've just, fuck. So we're going to start the game off at the point where red checkmates their opponent's yellow, which is a bad move. We're going to demonstrate how to win an endgame against people who are worse than you and don't really think about how the game works, really. Right. So blue starts off by weakening red, even though the true opponents really are going to be green. Green knows this, starts off by checking red. Blue joins in. I guess blue feels confident about going after green in a 1v1, which is why they're attacking red, probably looking for checkmate. Potentially he thought this was checkmate, who knows. Say the board's so big. And if you would notice, the red king is running out of squares, but it has one move left, which means any double check would be checkmate, which is where we start off the sort of 1v1 with green delivering checkmate. He decided that was probably a good thing to do because the material is almost equal, apart from green has more pawns, which are quite insignificant in this variation. But blue has a lot more activity in his pieces, and green has more points, obviously 41 to 28. So we start off with blue taking green's free pawn. Green protecting this pawn here, which is obviously very important as it's the closest pawn on the board to being a queen. Blue just attacks it so much that he takes it. Green takes as he's determined that he can push this pawn all the way to one square from queening, and it's really difficult to stop this pawn from queening. You just have to keep a blockade on it at all times. Obviously green is probably going to aim to remove this at some point. So blue just goes for attacking the pawn, just trying to get rid of it. But green's advancing forward with this knight to end up attacking, and green's just trying to come forward with this knight here, setting up a check, even though there's still one attacker and one defender of this pawn. I don't know what this move was, really. That was not a very good move. He decides to take it and just attack the knight, which is always going to move anywhere. Checks, double check. The bishop is worth a hell of a lot more than a knight in this variation. So now green is just in a winning endgame. Can he convert? And he just defends his passed pawn. Obviously blue sets up a battery. Probably thought that he was going to have to move his king up, and he probably thought that he would get this free rook because he's being down this sort of material. This pawn's really close to push, and you really don't want your pieces down this end of the board. You will want to stop green making this queen at this point in time. Obviously this bishop can come back and block any checks, so green doesn't lose material. So yeah, we're left with two queens potentially on the board, but blue is also going to get his own queen if green doesn't stop it. And that's what happens. Green just allows blue to get his own queen. He couldn't really do anything to stop it at this point apart from make his own. And all green has to do now is either get this queen off the board or get blue's king somewhere over here and go for a skewer or something of that nature, but checking is never going to be that detrimental. Obviously he's decided to remove this knight to go for another queen, which is a good idea. Just because he's up so much points, it doesn't really matter about the points. It's all about what you can do with the material. And he's just checking, and blue's running forward, probably wants to end up pushing his pawn all the way down here with his king's aid, so he decided to run forward, but it's not a good idea as he runs into some tactics. Now green's queen can come forward, and now he's looking at all sorts of x-rays. You don't want to step onto the same diagonal, especially when you're down a bishop. So he moves there. And then obviously green's got a great tactic in this position. I don't know if you want to pause and find it. It's not really very difficult of a find. You can kind of just win the game very easily, very quickly in this position. There's might be multiple ways, but this is the way that it was done in the game. Rook here, obviously in check, so it must be dealt with. King can't just take because obviously you lose the queen. King can't just move and still protect the queen because it's also an x-ray of this rook. And sorry, it's also an x-ray of this rook. Obviously you have to take the queen first, and then blue will take, and then take. So, and this is just completely hopeless for blue. So we go back. What happens in the game is blue ends up taking the rook. Green's queen captures queen, and this is completely over. It's just, this is execution. Get the queens off, get up a second queen, and when you've got two queens versus no queen, it's only ever going to be a win. So you give some checks, trying to get a check so that you can come somewhere on this diagonal and it's check. Obviously right now you can come here, and that's not good. So that's what he's trying to do. He's gone here, so now there's this check available, and he goes, picks up the final rook, and now blue has nothing. He's going to get ladder checkmated, and that is quite decent execution of a 1v1 with a nice move that I hope you guys can appreciate, because I was pretty proud to see that move. Obviously green wins, and that's how to execute a nice 2-player 1v1 ending. And after already a mistake by red, obviously I'm not going to cover like different situations where it gets really a lot complicated with 3 players, and like you really need to play a lot to get to that point anyway, where you'd even be in a position like that. So this is just for beginners. Like I said, I'm not very good, but I'm slightly better than a beginner, so I can sort of guide you through the start of your hopefully long journey, hopefully enjoyable journey. So yeah, we'll just hop back into where we are. As you can see, for just the beginning, opening, how to start your 4-player chess journey, I hope these 3 videos have helped you sort of begin to play, maybe gain some more confidence in what to do in the game, or rather than just making moves for the sake of making moves or just reacting to other people's moves. Hopefully gives you an insight into what people are thinking. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.